Hey, everybody, and welcome to big episode number 3 of the 4th season of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Rose Street Journal, leading the way as your blocker, paving the way to fantasy glory. Does that seem premature to you as we're in early January 2019? Perhaps, but you can never be too prepared in this business. And we're going to start preparing you right now. Like, for those of you that, need 6 months off or something like that, that's cool. Maybe this show isn't for you. But for those of you that as soon as you were eliminated from the playoffs and or if you were listening to us all year, possibly won your championship, and immediately were just like, man, I need more. All right, here's some more for you. We actually just dropped another episode with the Wolf and our buddy Audio Joe, Sound Guy Joe, whatever he's going by these days. They put a decent one out that just dropped today, and we're going to do this. We're going to give you the 3rd episode of the 4th season already, even before the 2nd week of January, for all you addicts out there, which is our bread and butter. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. Are we taking it to excess here?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely. Ultimately, like, the excess is what wins the championships. There's no excess.
That's true. Nobody says Belichick was too prepared.
No, exactly. There's no such thing as over preparing, and there's already crucial stuff going on. Like, we're gonna at least glance over the coaching carousel, spinning all over the place right now with some very interesting, unique hires. So that's crucial to monitor. We're going to break those down in much more depth as the offseason's developing, but we'll, of course, touch upon those. We already are balls deep in our first mock draft of the year, and it's great to already see the trends and see, how it's unfolding. The workhorse mania has overtaken everywhere, as it should properly. We've been talking about building stables since we've been born. So I came out of the womb
muttering about building a solid stable to use. Right.
Exactly. So tons of good trends. We're going to talk about that mock draft. We'll talk about the carousel a little bit. And yeah, there's no such thing as over preparation. Whether there's an excuse for me to have this addiction or not, I love it. And I can't wait to keep breaking down these coaching moves and all that throughout this whole offseason. And then as soon as we break down all those, free agency is going to hit, and then it's the draft. And then there's just no offseason.
Someone's going to get busted with a hooker doing something they shouldn't have been doing on top of that with snorting blow off the bedside table in a hotel. Anyway,
absolutely.
It's bound to happen, and we're going to be here to jump on it when it does. Of course, before that, we're going to talk about the real NFL playoffs. We talked last week. We made our predictions. We're unclear exactly who got what right, but I'm pretty sure I went 1-3. I got the Chargers over the Ravens, and even that one I did not feel great about picking. Mm-hmm. I felt pretty good about the Bears, Eagles, and, I was wrong. It obviously could have gone either way. The Texans game is the one that I picked. I picked Houston, and I knew I was going to be wrong. I just I really like Houston, so I picked them based on that, and I knew that was a flawed logic, bad reason to make a pick. But I picked the Seahawks, and I felt pretty good about that one as well. I went 1-3. I'm pretty sure you went 1-3 also. It might have been a different one. You might have even gone 0-4. I'm not sure.
I think I went Eagles over Bears,
all right,
and that was possible. I know I definitely went all in on the Ravens and Seahawks, and then
you definitely went
the
Houston.
Texans.
We both did.
But and that was our whole thing coming into the playoffs.
We said we could miss them
this
all.
year is as insane as any. So fantasy playoffs, it's impossible to really predict and all that stuff. So go with the high upside guys, and hopefully you did. Hopefully you got Luck and Mahomes and something. What's going to happen this weekend? I already think the Colts are going to go in and win.
We got 4 games. Let's talk about them just like we did last week, and hopefully we'll do a little better than 1-3. All right, so let's start on the NFC side. We've got some interesting games, no doubt about it. Let's start off with the Saints, the number 1 seed, and they're going to be hosting the red hot, possibly, God-infused Eagles, and in the Superdome. So what do you think?
I think the Saints are just too good. They're too well coached. They got Drew Brees. He's got a defense. He's got a running game. I mean, they have every element you need, the home field advantage, to go all the way through. And I think that's going to happen. I know it's the pretty commonplace pick. And I know, as you mentioned, God-infused Foles makes it a little bit risky. But at the end of the day, nobody's going into the Superdome beating the Saints in these playoffs, at least in my opinion. I think it's the Saints. I think it's the Saints by at least a touchdown.
They are, I believe, an 8-point favorite going into the game, which is the biggest spread of any of the games, which I think it should be. I agree with you. I mean, you don't ever want to count at this point, and it sounds so stupid to say. It's like you never want to count out Nick Foles. Well, you can't. I mean, it's true. You can't. He's earned that at this point. But I'm picking the Saints too. I mean, I think the Saints are going to go all the way. They're my pick to win the Super Bowl until further notice. I expect them to beat the Eagles, which based on last week's picks assures that the Eagles will probably win. All right, let's finish off the NFC. We have the Rams hosting the Cowboys. Man, a month and a half ago, this would have been a huge no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I know the Rams have really hiccuped a lot. Gurley practicing only sporadically. Jared Goff has been mediocre at best. And, this seemingly unstoppable juggernaut of an offense has slowed down. And the defense, filled with big names, is not getting the stops that they're supposed to. With that said, how much do you believe in the Cowboys?
I don't really believe in the Cowboys. I know they took out my Seahawks team that I was riding about and raving about. And I don't believe in the Rams all that much either. And if any team's built to go in and beat them with that running game, with that defense, it is the Cowboys. But I just think well-rested, off the bye, getting Gurley back to 100%, kind of getting their gears under them. I really think they're just going to come out and explode and put up a ton of points, and I just don't think the Cowboys have the firepower to go with that, plus with the defense fully healthy as well. I just think the Rams team is too talented. I know it's a 1-2. There's no upset predictions for the NFC for me. I think the top two seeds are clearly head and shoulders above, and that 1 week off did them wonders. So I think the Rams come out and win this one as well.
A couple factors to take into consideration. The crowd is going to probably be at least half Cowboys fans. The LA teams don't draw anybody. So if that's a factor, it's there. The home field advantage has not seemed like much of a factor for them either way, and I know it's not really for the Chargers either, who we're going to talk about in a minute. I agree with you. If it becomes a situation where there's a lot of points being scored, I don't think there's any way the Cowboys can keep up. Dak Prescott's not going to put up 40 points. I don't care what kind of defense he's going after. I like the Rams in this one as well, but I kind of look at it and I'm like, wow, this turns into a 17-14 game. Dallas could eke it out. I'm not going to second guess myself. I've believed in the Rams certainly more than I believed in the Cowboys all year, so I'm with you. I'm going chalk. Saints, Rams, they could both be one-sided games also. I hope they're not. I hope they're competitive, but that's definitely who I like going forward. All right, let's go to the AFC. This one's interesting. We have the Chiefs hosting the Colts. 1 versus 6 matchup. Seems like, the Chiefs should take care of business. I know a lot of people that like the Colts in this game.
And I'm one of them. I'm going to take the Colts myself. I think they're coming off a red-hot effort. I think that defense is just so legit. They made humongous gains on the offensive line and defense, and that's where there was obviously the glaring question marks with the Chiefs over the last seemingly decade. So I think they've done everything they could from a draft perspective, personnel perspective. I think Frank Reich's really turned that ship around, whether he had some bonehead decisions early in the year or not. I'm a fan. I think he's done a really nice job. And Andy Reid just doesn't know how to manage clock. I think the Chiefs' defense is god-awful. So, yes, we're going to get a shootout. It's going to be a great game. But I trust the Chiefs' defense to clamp it down late when it matters most. Maybe Mahomes makes a stupid play. As much as I love the guy, he's not, just can avoid those late-game picks at times. So, I don't know. I'm leaning Colts here. I think the Colts can go in, take care of business. They're seasoned. They're ready to go. What do you think?
Well, I saw an interesting question on Pardon the Interruption, which is a show that I've watched like forever pretty much. And I love it when Mike and Tony are on there. And one of the toss-up questions they said, who would you rather have in this game, Pat Mahomes or Andrew Luck? Who would you rather have for this game? I don't mean fantasy-wise. I mean, like, who would you want running your team?
As my guy, probably still Mahomes, because it's not like Luck's this playoff god. I know he's had more games and he's got a few playoff wins under his belt.
4-3 in the playoffs.
Yeah, but 4-3. It's not like it's insane. It's not like I need this guy to be my quarterback. It's decent numbers, but going into Arrowhead's real tough too. So this just the Chiefs' defense is nothing in my opinion. If I had the same team compositions though, like if you could put Mahomes with the Colts defense, I'd still rather have Mahomes in my opinion. Too much talent.
They both picked Luck.
Did they?
They did. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs in this game. And every argument that you made is legit, and I wouldn't be shocked at all to see this go down. But this might be a Texans thing where it's like I really like the Chiefs. I really like watching them play. And, I've seen their upside. Their upside is pretty much unparalleled. And so I'm hoping the Chiefs will pull it out. And I think that they should pull it out. One factor we have not talked about that I'm going to bring up. These are the types of games that Andy Reid was born to lose. So,
yeah, of course.
I'd be lying if I said that's not in the back of my head.
Right.
All right,
Absolutely.
but I'm picking the Chiefs. Let's talk Patriots, Chargers. Patriots, backed their way into a bye and a home field advantage, which was very much in doubt for a while there. And they're going to be happy they have it. What do you think about this? This is an interesting matchup.
I love the matchup, but the Pats 8-0 at home, the Chargers 8-0 on the road. That classic unstoppable force, immovable object style game. But in that case, I'm going with the home team. I'm going with my boys, the Pats. Phillip Rivers 0-7 against Tom Brady. Definitely not getting any wins here. This Chargers team is different than any of those other Pats ones. You can't have history. It's not like Rivers is going to come in scared. He's a
no, he's
guy.
Not scared of anybody.
He's seasoned. He's grizzled. It's not like he looks at 0-7 or on the road. Clearly, Anthony Lynn's got this team fired up, playing well on the road all season. So I don't really put too much stock into those. I just think the Pats team with the rest, getting fully healthy, and they just have played. I mean, the differential at home has been so crazy in terms of offense, in terms of defense. Everything's been so well. I think we match up good against these guys, even if they have a better overall roster composition. I just am hoping for playoff Brady. He's got one or two more shots at this thing. I think he's not going to take that for granted. I love it. I think the Pats pull it out. Melvin Gordon's dinged up, and I can see him exiting early, and that being a huge factor. I can think Gilmore can lock down Keenan Allen. Hunter Henry, kind of the X factor here, getting activated, going to be playing. One of my favorite players, obviously. I'm just a Hunter Henry truthist till the day I die.
You really are.
I'm nervous about that guy. That's probably the guy I'm most nervous about right now, because I think we can defend everything else pretty well, but we've been awful against tight ends. If this guy's actually fully healthy, that's going to be an interesting injection at the most opportune time. But I'm going Pats, baby.
I'm going Chargers.
I figured you would. You had to have one upset, right?
Yeah, gun to my head, I'd probably take the Pats, like if I had to bet my house or something like that. But I think it's close enough where I'm going Chargers. So I got AFC Championship. I got Chiefs Chargers, which could be a super fun game. You got Pats Colts, which would be like. So anyway, hopefully I'm right and you're wrong.
Pats Colts would be a duel, man. I would love that.
Give me. I don't think so. I think it would suck. And I also and you can't convince me that one of those two teams is one of the best two teams in the NFL. I just don't.
I think it's coming out of the NFC is the best.
I don't
buy
buy
if anybody's going to beat them, it's Brady. I
think the Saints are the prohibitive favorite. I really do. I mean, I would, I've thought it would be the Saints for over a month, maybe more, and it's just nothing has changed that's made me change my mind. All right, let's get coaching carousel check-in, and we're not going deep on any of these guys. We're going to do separate episodes on the ones that we think are the most relevant, maybe even all of them. But let me just run down real quick what's going on, because we had I think we had 8 openings.
Yeah, there's a lot of those and some offensive coordinators too. So it's about 10 or so that are really of note.
Well, let's talk head coach first, and then I'll slip down and we'll talk a little bit about offensive coordinators as well. Cardinals picked up Cliff Kingsbury. Now former coach of Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And has been
Texas A&M, right?
Texas A&M. I always get those two confused. You could prove me wrong pretty easily. Anyway, he's been under Sean McVay for the last year, and of course we've seen the Rams blow up. So I don't know. There's a lot of questions about the guy. I was hearing one guy on the radio basically saying he got hired because he's really good looking. I don't know.
Right? Yeah, everyone's looking for their next McVay. I mean, you look at this list; it's all clearly offensive.
Cardinals, that Rams coaching staff, mighty good looking, except Wade Phillips.
Yeah.
All the rest of them pretty hot guys.
Hey, if you have a taste, you got a type, Maybe you like Oldman. Who knows? Don't discriminate against the big boy.
That's true. Him and Andy Reid. Big is beautiful. All right, Matt LaFleur, Packers. I've heard a lot of question marks about this one, too. We'll see. The Bucs are the guys who, in my opinion, win the Bruce Arians sweepstakes. Didn't really seem like it was treated that way. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was the job he wanted the whole time. We got Byron Leftwich maybe calling plays for him. We'll see. I don't know. Byron Leftwich, once he got calling plays for the Cardinals, did not do anything too exciting. So We'll see what happens. The Browns have finally handed the keys to the kitchen to Freddie Kitchens. Dubious hire. None of these I just love, except Arians, I guess I love. But I mean, the rest of them, I'm like, whatever. And then Gase picked up by the Jets. Really? I don't know. What do you think? And then we still are not sure about the Bengals. We're still not sure about the Dolphins. The Broncos made a hire. That's not on here. The Broncos picked up somebody. I forget his. It's like
Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio, and John Elway says he's about the best coach out there, and we'll see. I don't know.
I mean, I like Vic Fangio in terms of just like pure head coaching hires. I think he's a beast, and I like that they went to Gary Kubiak for their offensive coordinator.
That is cool.
The zone blocking scheme. Obviously, he's got the history with the Broncos there as well. He's coordinated some great offenses in the past. So Phillip Lindsay, huge stock up era. We're going to break down these in much more depth. I agree with you though. There's a lot of unproven. Everyone's kind of going for that gamble. Do we find the next McVay? Do we find the next guy, the Matt Nagy? And I don't know if any of these guys have it. I mean, Matt LaFleur, sure, he's been groomed under Sean McVay, and he was groomed under Kyle Shanahan, but he had his one shot at calling plays. And the Titans, very much underwhelming team for the talent they had. He mismanaged that backfield for pretty much the entire year till Derrick Henry had that late season explosion. So I don't have a ton of confidence. Obviously, you got Aaron Rodgers versus, a banged up Marcus Mariota. That's a huge upgrade. So maybe we'll see his genius truly flourish. But still, I mean, there's nothing that's overly confident to me about Matt LaFleur. Cliff Kingsbury, obviously, another one of those. Is this the next Sean McVay? Very explosive juggernaut offenses at Texas A&M, but no defense, no real semblance of a run game, no real great track record of success. Has had no more than 8 wins in a single season at the college level. So, and does he have the weaponry to pull off his college air raid style offense? Does Josh Rosen have the arm talent? I know he says Kingsbury that he loves Josh Rosen's superior arm, but can he sling it as far as obviously not like Pat Mahomes, but those vertical shots were non-existent last year, and I don't know if they're going to be existent this year. They don't have the receivers to get downfield either. I mean, Kirk's got some good speed out of the slot, but Larry Fitz is 70 years old if he's even back, a free agent this year. So who knows if they'll have the weaponry. Like you mentioned, Bruce Arians, the one that I am most intrigued by. He's just had such a great track record. There's some great weapons in place for the scheme he likes to run, where he just bombs teams after bombs teams. Winston can get deep and likes to take his shots. He's got the weaponry on the outside. And I do like Freddie Kitchens getting the nod after really turning it around there for the Browns. Him and Baker have that connection, so why not keep that rolling for a year with a very underwhelming cast of coaching candidates? I think Kitchens was the right move to promote. Adam Gase is the head scratcher here. Why not Todd Monken, a guy that just had great success with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston, the second most passing yards in the league, a prolific offense. I think the third or fourth highest scoring offense. As much defensive woes as they had, that's not Monken's fault, the offensive coordinator, and a guy that was well-liked, well-respected by everyone that was around him. I don't know how he hasn't gotten hired yet. I'm really hoping he goes to the Bengals, where he'd have some good weaponry, some interesting pieces to work with. Otherwise, there are rumors that he might end up as the Browns offensive coordinator and pair up with Kitchens, which I would also love. So he's probably the last domino I cannot wait to see fall is Todd Monken. But other than that, I am not overly thrilled about any of these hires. I can't wait to dig into the numbers, though, and I will break down each position and running backs and receiver ones and the pass, all that good stuff, as we did last year. And we'll make sure to have some guests on from different beat sources to get our finger right in on the pulse to see what they think of these coaches as well. But none of them other than maybe Arians. And I do like the Broncos combination of Vic Fangio and Gary Kubiak. I like that a lot. Other than that, I'm not overly thrilled. Kitchen's probably the third on that list.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we'll see how that works out. I mean, there could be a few home runs here, and there could be a few strikeouts. They could be all strikeouts. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get into the mock draft, and this was done by the Roto Street Journal experts. And I want to just say, kind of like as an asterisk to this, we need to find a better site to do mock drafts in January. Like, we did this thing and we're working
Addicts need it, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, and we need it. We need the RSJ big board to be the backbone of it, the thing that's used.
100%.
I mean, like, this needs to exist. If you've tried to do a mock draft in January, it is not too easy. Like, you can do it, you can pick the players, but there's no big board where they're being crossed off and you can see who's, it's kind of a disaster. Now, for the first 2 rounds, which is what we're going to go to here, it's not an issue. I mean, we know our fantasy players enough where the first 3-4 rounds or whatever, not going to be a problem. After that, it got a little bit tough. But these rounds, and this is obviously very, very early. This is early January 2019. Just because we have a problem, we're doing this. So I'm just going to run down the first round real quick, and we can debrief quickly on these, and then we'll hit the second round, and then we'll probably call it quits for the day. All right, first round, and this is the order they went in. Gurley, Saquon Barkley. Of course, CJ picked Saquon Barkley. Christian McCaffrey, that was me. Zeke, 4th. James Conner, 5th. Kamara, 6th. Melvin Gordon, 7th. Le'Veon Bell, don't even know where he'll be. He was 8th. That was you. That's the first 8 guys, all running backs. Davante Adams, Pat Mahomes, that seems a little bit crazy, but we'll see. DeAndre Hopkins, and then Nick Chubb rounding out the first round. What do you think? What are your initial thoughts? What jumps out at you other than the heavy running back trend?
I think that was the clear-cut first takeaway was 8 straight running backs, including guys we don't even know where they're going to be. And Le'Veon Bell just illustrates how valuable having that true bell cow, especially if you somehow landed the back-to-back bell cow and bred that horse stable. There's nothing better. I mean, you get 20 to 30 touches a week. You're banking on 20 plus, sometimes 30 plus points a week. Whereas receivers occasionally disappear or hover more around the 15 to 20 range. Your bell cows are more in that 25, 30 point range. The couple questions I have that emerged from this first round is who deserves to go number 1 overall? I mean, last year was Todd Gurley. It was a no-brainer in my opinion. Le'Veon Bell at the early offseason was a guy some people said, but ultimately it was Gurley, and there was not much of a debate. Here you got, Gurley, Barkley, McCaffrey, Zeke. I think all 4 of them make very sturdy cases.
They're all legit number 1 picks.
In my opinion. I like Gurley right now, personally. He's been back-to-back number 1 running back. The number 1 overall pick has never done that, and he just did it in back-to-back seasons. I mean, there's nothing different. Maybe the line, they got a couple free agent contracts coming up, so important to track, but the offense is so explosive. He's so highly used. He's so talented. I mean, he hates fantasy owners, so I guess that's one of the only thing going against him. But I would personally side Gurley unless I see enormous line gains and a quarterback injection for the Giants, which maybe they get Haskins from Ohio State, an explosive guy that could really just send that offense soaring, suddenly when you got Eli Manning just lugging an anchor behind him. That's just awful. But the offensive line, obviously a huge concern. But Barkley, probably only guy I truly might consider over Gurley. But again, you could make a case for McCaffrey. You could make a case for Zeke. I think it comes down to those 4 guys, unless number 6 overall in this draft, Alvin Kamara. If Mark Ingram's gone and there's no suitable replacement, he's a guy that you would really have to consider. If you would listen to our last pod, I mean, this guy, 524 fantasy points was his pace when Ingram wasn't in lineups. That was better than LT's historic 31 touchdown season, folks. So that's a guy that has to get, number 1 overall consideration pending how this offseason comes out.
I was going to say don't sleep on this guy, but obviously you're not sleeping on him. You said he could be the number 1 guy. But, I mean, McCaffrey, to me, and I took him 3rd, I would have at least thought about taking him 1st. I mean, I just think that the pass catching is so ridiculous. And, I mean, you pair that with very solid running as well. It's about as much receiving as you'll ever see out of a running back. It's ridiculous. Now Zeke,
it's as much usage, dude.
It's just rates, ridiculous. And
he in 8 out of 16 games, he played legitimately 100% of snaps. He was in on until week 17, where obviously it was a meaningless game against. They had their 4th string quarterback in, so they were protecting him by the end of it. And he only played, I think, like 5 to 10 snaps. But before that, leading into week 16, he had played 97% of the snaps on the season. That's unheard of. That's
he
back in the throwback
all the time.
He's so highly used for no such thing as a smallish back that can't be a bell cow. He's redefined the entire position.
He's great.
I'm sure there's going to be reports that want to scale back his workload and things like that. But yeah, McCaffrey's so special, so highly used. I'm with you.
And we did get more than one comment on the RSJ thing when we posted on Facebook that said McCaffrey should go number
PPR
1. I mean, it's like I wasn't the only one who thought that. Now, keep in mind, just to be clear, if I had number 1, I wouldn't have picked McCaffrey. I don't think I probably would have gone Gurley. But I felt very comfortable taking him where I did. Now, with that said, Zeke at number 4, his receiving numbers, like I feel like people don't realize how much of a receiver this guy actually became, especially in the second half of the season. You can't really go wrong with him either. I felt good with McCaffrey, but you can't go wrong with Zeke. Connor, I don't know.
That was the reach to me. That was the reach of the draft.
I was a little surprised with Connor.
So, I mean, it's like he's only a couple spots reach, in my opinion. It's Connor in the best, most valuable backfield spot. So I get it, but I would have a hard time taking Connor over the Kamara anyways, even if Ingram's there. Never mind the upside that Ingram could leave. And Melvin Gordon had the third most points per game among running backs. So, I would have a tough time going Connor over either of those guys. I just don't love the talent. I love everything else about him. I think he's a good talent.
You're picking the Steelers offense essentially if you do that. To me, and I'll be honest, the one that made me cringe a little bit, even though it could just be like an absolute home run, was Le'Veon Bell. Like there's so much. I mean, this is why you don't draft in January. I mean, you're drafting. You say Le'Veon Bell based on you're like this guy was arguably the best running back in football a year ago. And, and 2 years ago and 3 years ago was up there in the conversation every single time. For me, it's like I got no idea where he's going.
And my counter would be any team that's shelling out, $15 million a year is going to use him like a workhorse. Now, if it ends up being,
but what if they have no offensive line? I mean, who the fuck knows
of course,
who it is?
Huge factors. Right.
Yeah, I agree that whoever gets him is going to try to feed him the ball.
Right.
And there are places that he could land where 8 would be a steal. Don't get me wrong.
And I'm telling maybe the Bucs now with Bruce Arians, who we've seen just ridiculous bell cow style numbers dating back to David Johnson just a couple seasons ago. Enormous receiving usage. I think that fit with some good cap.
Sucks. I mean, you're right.
Jameis sucks. I don't think Jameis sucks. I think he makes some stupid decisions. Yeah. But down the stretch, he's showed he was much more careful with the ball. I think he's got a great arm. I think he can take that next step this year. I don't think Jameis sucks. I think Bruce Arians is the guy that squeezes the most out of him. So
Arians is a great upgrade. We'll see what happens. Bell, could be a steal at 8, and also you could be like, man, that was a huge reach. We'll see what happens.
Do you know how many catches? I know. Just going backtrack real quick. Do you know how many catches Zeke had this year? Because you hinted that his numbers skyrocketed.
Well, when he went, I know that from week 10 on. I think he was second in the NFL among backs receiving. I think he had 45 catches in those weeks. I think he finished with maybe 70 catches.
Yeah, 77 catches, fifth in the league.
Yeah, I mean that's real. I mean, people don't realize that because I didn't realize it when I saw it because I think of him as just primarily a running guy. But it's you average 4 catches a game. That's 64, and I mean that's pretty standard for him even in the first part of the year. You up that to 5 a game, and now you're talking about 80, and that's about what he's getting. I mean, he's just he is a huge part of that offense. So don't sleep on Zeke either. Not that anyone's sleeping on him, but
but for number 1 overall, I mean, he could have that consideration. And you mentioned second half of the year that coincidentally, when Amari Cooper arrived, he had 1 out of 7 games with only 20 fantasy points before Cooper gets there. 5 of his last 8 went for over 20. A couple 30-pointers mixed in there. So I mean, just getting that more dangerous outside threat opened up the lane so much more for Zeke and opened up the receiving outlet usage lane. So I love Zeke. I mean, he's still there hasn't been that perfect marriage of we've had the usage now. We have the perfect marriage of the usage, but the red zone, his numbers. I mean, he had 16 touchdowns as a rookie, and then this year only had 9, I believe, was what he ended up with. So if we get this type of receiving usage with the insane rushing output, I mean, 2 out of 3 years leading the league in rushing is just insane. So we get the yardage and then the receiving and then the touchdowns all marry. He will be the number 1 player in fantasy. So that upside exists, and he totally can make that case.
All right. Then we go to end the round. Davante Adams, Pat Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins, Nick Chubb. Is Chubb the guy that's your next running back after those top 8?
No, I like the guy who leads off our second round. So we'll get there in a second. One debate I have that end of the first round brings up is who belongs first at wide receiver. I mean, I personally side with Adams. I agree with the pick that Taylor made here with Adams. Just the floor was so high. I don't think he went below 14 points in a single game this year. He was clear-cut Rodgers' number 1 target. I mean, what does LaFleur do to that? I think it comes from that Shanahan tree where they pepper number 1 receivers. So I expect that magic to continue. There was just nothing wrong and a high ceiling to you, a couple 30-pointers mixed in there. But I know who you're probably going to say.
What, Hopkins?
Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick against Hopkins. I mean,
you would go Hopkins number 1 for wide receivers?
Probably, although I would have definitely gone running back with my first pick. I'm pretty sure I'd have taken all those guys that went before Hopkins.
Yes. I mean, okay. So let's say you're at 9. Is there a running back? That's what. I
mean, this is when it gets tough. I mean, you could look at Chubb. You could look at like Mixon, guys like that. But I'd have probably taken Hopkins at 9. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's just he's money. He's so. I mean, he the only down year we've ever seen him have was Osweiler, and even that wasn't like as bad as like most people's down years. And I mean, that was Brock Osweiler.
Ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, I get the hype around Adams now. I mean, Rodgers is great, whatever. I don't know. I would gun to my head picking that high. I'm going to pick somebody with a super high floor, and I know you said that Adams' floor is also high, but I've also seen Adams almost get his head taken off a couple times.
That's true.
Where I thought he was never going to be able to play in the NFL again. And Hopkins is, much like you talked about with McCaffrey, Hopkins is 100% snap guy.
He's just a warrior.
He's just always out there. He's a tough fucking dude, man. I would go, even the more we're talking now, Hopkins is my number.
You're almost swaying me at this point. Like, I mean, the track record, the durability, there's no debate. And then there's the major elephant of this first round, and that's number 10 right there, Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, do you think that's crazy?
So you know what? It's going to be like Rodgers a few years ago when he was just locked into 40 touchdowns every season. He was a no-brainer in every first round. Mahomes will be emerging in every first round, so
that's crazy.
I don't hate that it's there.
He shouldn't be going in the first round.
But it's a quarterback. I mean, could anybody than Hopkins here? No. I mean, Hopkins is the absolute – Mahomes. What am I talking about? Sorry, my phone's unplugged for a second, so I just got a little loopy. Mahomes, by all means, the MVP level, our guy. I mean, I could not love the guy more for what he did this year. 50 touchdowns, over 5,000 yards as a 10th rounder that we were all in on last January.
Yeah, he was one of our guys, no doubt.
So I have nothing but love for this guy in my heart, but I will never, ever take a quarterback in the first 4 rounds, never mind in the top 10 overall. So I don't love the pick. I think that's – and you look at Heggs' team as the draft unfolds. And he had Mahomes last year, so I get it. I love the allegiance.
Well, he picked the second round, pig roast.
Yeah, exactly. The best pig roast in the game.
The best pig roast in the game, no question about it.
The only other thing I would say towards that, though, is as the draft unfolded, I was actually pretty impressed with the wide receivers and running backs that were still out there in round 6. And then it hit a wall that was like, there's nobody I am interested in suddenly. So it's one of those things where it's like you lock in Mahomes. There were still guys to build around him, but it dropped off so fast, and there was such few talent that I expect to break out after round 6 that I don't know. I personally would never do it. It's not my thing.
No, I think it's a bad pick, and I mean, but it's one of those things in fantasy. If you're just like going into the draft, you're like, I want to own this guy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I have a friend who always picks Cam Newton. He doesn't pick him in the first round, but he always picks him way before he should pick him because he just has to have him.
Friend doesn't win too often.
He doesn't win that often.
Is this Will? Is this Will?
Willie, yeah. It's Willie. All right, let's go to the second round. And the end of the first round ended with Nick Chubb. And then the first pick in the second round was Joe Mixon. Now, the only other running back taken in the whole second round was at 21, Dalvin Cook. Let me just run down the second round real fast, and we'll talk about those backs, and then we'll talk about the rest of the round, which was almost all receivers with the exception of Travis Kelce, who you picked up. Joe Mixon, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, Antonio Brown, Travis Kelce, Mike Thomas, Odell Beckham, Juju Smith-Schuster, Dalvin Cook, David Johnson, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper. Forgot about Johnson. That's another running back that was taken in that round. I mean, those are all serious names in that. I mean, those are all some real players in that round. You like Mixon
make a
best?
Case for a lot of them as first rounders. I mean, there's plenty of those guys. If you took in round 1, I wouldn't have batted an eye. A lot of them I personally have a lot higher than Nick Chubb. And as much as I love Chubb and I like that Freddie Kitchens is now back for him, he blew up once Kitchens took over. There was that weird insertion of Duke Johnson come the end of the year that started eating into Chubb's receiving workload.
Yep.
And he became more of like a 13-ish point back where you knew you're getting 100 rushing and
20.
a catch or 2. But he wasn't the 25, 30-point horse that we were getting come midseason. If Arians went there, I might feel a little bit different because he just rides the number 1 back so heavily. So I didn't love Chubb. I'd rather have Mixon, who led off the round, than Chubb. And I'd rather have Dalvin Cook, especially with Latavius Murray, a free agent. He's already come out and said, I'm a starting back. I want to be a starting back in this league. I've talked to Dalvin, nothing but love for the guy, but I'm out of here.
What about David Johnson?
I'd rather have Chubb than Johnson. Fuck Johnson.
I picked Johnson with my – I mean, obviously Chubb was gone many picks before. It's not like I had a choice. But these guys are my 2 keepers on my or these guys, I can pick 2 keepers, and one of them's going to be Hopkins, and I have Chubb and Johnson. And so, like –
That's a tough debate.
It's difficult, man. It's difficult.
I'm intrigued to see who Kingsbury hires as his run game coordinator, just because he's never historically ridden running backs. Now, he's never had a talent like David Johnson, so of course a smart offensive mind. You can't just be like, oh, pigeonhole, he threw 80% of his balls to wide receivers and only 10% to running backs. He's never had a David Johnson, who's essentially a wide receiver on the field. I'm starting to think, though, I don't know if I love Johnson as a talent. Like, yes, he's so versatile, and you can feed him so voluminously, and he's big and he's powerful, but he just hasn't shown that, explosive second gear that we saw that rookie season when he was just throwing eagles to the ground and ripping off, 200-yard days and 3 touchdowns. I don't know if that's a product of the line being just god-awful. It could be. I don't know if it's just being unmotivated because the rest of the offense kind of sucked. It could be. But I haven't seen that David Johnson since 2015, so I don't know how much I buy into that guy as just a talent. The usage will always be there when he's such a versatile, big threat. But I'd rather have, Dalvin Cook. I'd probably rather have Nick Chubb if I was choosing today, with Dalvin Cook being the only other guy with Mixon that I'm like, okay, bottom of or top of the second, I would have really considered for running backs. Otherwise, I really agree that wide receivers flooded this round as they should. And
really good ones too. Now you picked Travis Kelce, 17 overall. That was the 5th pick in the second round. Only non-running back or wide receiver that went. Now, here's the guys that went after Kelce that you passed on. You passed on Mike Thomas, ODB.
That's the only one. I mean,
you passed on Mike Thomas, ODB, Juju, Dalvin Cook, David Johnson, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper. You passed on all those guys. Some of those, obviously, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I'd rather have Kelce than Amari Cooper. What do you – and I mean, I'd rather have Kelce than, like, probably David Johnson, stuff like that. What do you think, man? I don't know. I get how important it is to grab a studly tight end when there's so few of them. It would have been hard for me to take him over Mike Thomas, man.
To me, it's, tight end 1, tight end 2, tight end 1 the past 3 years. So we've got that track record. The sure points are coming. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And the biggest year he's ever had in his career is not a coincidence that it was under Pat Mahomes and this entire offensive explosion that led the league in points and yardage and all that good stuff. 103 catches, 1,336 yards, 10 TDs. I mean, that would have been the wide receiver 8 this year. To get that, as you mentioned, it's such a starved position that has no semblance of consistent points. He was more than double the points of the tight end 6, Austin Hooper.
Wow.
So I mean,
Austin Hooper was the tight end 6, huh?
Yeah, that's all you need to know about the tight end position.
You're convincing me.
Pretty damn horrendous outside a couple, George Kittle, Zach Ertz. And when I saw how low Kittle went, I mean, he went in like late round 4. I was like, okay, maybe I could have waited for Kittle.
If Kittle went late round 4, then you probably reached on Kelce, but you didn't know that. I mean,
and you can have known that. And I love the pick. I love the edge I got, knowing I am going to have the best tight end every single week I'm out there, except for his bye. And I love that. He was the 7th ranked on Yahoo's MVP list on 40% of championship teams. So, I mean, that edge was very, very real. That connection is only going to get stronger. There's no way the Chiefs were a fluke. Mahomes is too talented. There's too much weaponry. Andy Reid's offense has always been explosive, and this is the best we've ever seen. So I just love it. I like all that. Mike Thomas was really the only other one. And when we go through the draft later and you see my wide receivers, now I'm kind of like, oh, fuck, my receivers really took a hit. But ultimately, I don't regret it. If I consider Kelce my wide receiver 1 and a few of these guys pan out, I really like the stable that I could build around Kelce. I had no doubt about it. Antonio Brown, I thought, and obviously there's the uncertainty.
I mean, he went 16.
16, that's ridiculous. When we did the second round, was kind of in the heart of him being like, I want to get traded, and the diva stuff coming out. So, okay, I get the emotions flooding, but I was praying he was going to fall to me. I mean, regardless of where this guy ends up, whether he stays in Pittsburgh, where he just put up a career high 15 touchdowns, whether he stays there or goes to, let's say, the top target in San Fran or wherever he lands, he's going to see 180 targets. He's going to be a monster. It's Antonio fucking Brown, one of the best receivers to ever play this game. So to be able to get him, 16, I thought was a fantastic pick from Taylor. That was my favorite pick of the round, not even close.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at that and you're just like, man, I cannot believe that guy went 16. I mean, you could totally make a case for him going over Davante Adams, by the way.
You could.
I mean, he's Antonio Brown. He's got like 100 catches each of the last 6 years. Are you kidding me? Like he's the best. He's one of the best 5 receivers in the history of the NFL now, probably. At least very close to it.
To me, is Hopkins, Brown, and Adams are the top elite tier. And whichever of those three you take, I wouldn't argue with at the first receiver off the board. But Tyreek and Julio, as much as I love those guys, and I know Tyreek, number one receiver on the season, just a little inconsistent, though. Had too many disappearing acts. And then, of course, he swings you weeks with 40 points. And you got the top weapon of a Mahomes-led offense. I get it.
Plus, the guy who took Tyreek here, I mean, has got Mahomes. What a fun pig roast. Come on.
What a pig roast. I mean, that's a fun pig roast. I don't even know if it's a pig roast. That's just a pig fucking slaughter.
That's like a boar roast. That's like the wild boar that killed Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, exactly. Just unbelievable. But other than that, I mean, the only other guy, and I love this pick, Juju at 20.
Oh, yeah.
AB is gone. Pick, even if he's not gone, I think that's fantastic.
I definitely like Juju over ODB. Not to keep beating the people I like more than ODB horse that I've been beating for years. But come on, man. I'd way rather have Juju than him.
I'd rather, yeah.
And probably Thielen, too, although I don't know. I mean,
Odell was one of the few reaches, in my opinion. And I definitely would have rather had Dalvin Cook than a lot of the guys that went above him. I know he was injured his whole rookie season, and last year played banged up most of the year as well. But when he was right, he looked so damn good. He gets Kevin Stefanski back, who was force-feeding him the rock in those last 3 weeks where he was really blowing up. Murray being gone is obviously enormous to the goal line value. They just really need to improve that line. That's the last missing step for Cook, being that guy that you get like late round 2, ends up being a top 4 guy. It'd be like the McCaffrey of this year, in my opinion. Dalvin Cook has that style upside.
And then last but not least, Amari Cooper rounding out the round. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I think that we've seen how purposeful, how intentional they've been trying to feed him the ball. He's clearly still got the skills, but I don't know. Second round, I'm not sure.
No, there's guys. I like Evans. I like Allen. I like Hilton. Like, there's just a lot of other receivers I would have considered. I get that Cooper did blow up for that stretch. He's the clear-cut number one target there. I like Cooper a lot, but there's just other guys, even Diggs potentially.
I was going to say I'd probably rather have Diggs than Cooper.
It's tricky. That's where it starts to get close to me. I definitely would have rather had, Ertz get that tight end edge. But you get it. I get the argument for Cooper and the target share. Now he gets a full offseason to fully acclimate himself. It's just I'm also scarred, though. I'm
scarred, too. I took him in the second round last year of a draft, and it was like the worst thing that's ever happened to me before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it was the third round. I don't know. But, I mean, the point is I wish I hadn't.
Who do you think's the most likely to bust out of that round?
Out of this round? Maybe David Johnson. No, David Johnson or ODB or maybe Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper probably my favorite to bust, the last pick of the round.
I mean, with David Johnson, it's like he's now. I took him at 22. It's like, but then I'm, in my mind, I have like number one overall expectations for him. So like, I'll probably end up being disappointed, but I'll bet he ends up being solid. I mean, even the shitty season he had this year, I think he was still a top 10 guy at running back.
It was one of those crazy things, though. You look at the numbers, and it was like the top 8 were
it was a huge drop,
high and far above the rest of the field. Yep. It was a humongous. It went from like 20 points a game to like 13 or 14.
Absolutely,
it was like almost a touchdown a game. So
no question about it.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting first 2 rounds though, to get the whistle wet and begin your offseason prep. I love this shot. Obviously, this is the best.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed us going through the first 2 rounds. Maybe we'll hit the next 2 rounds maybe next time on the show, and start to address some of these coaching things and some of these offseason stories, see where some of these guys are going to land, see how long this Antonio Brown saga, this Le'Veon Bell saga is going to last, and also we'll have some playoff results by then. Go Chargers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything's rolling out spades right now. And if you want to check out the entire mock draft, it'll be up on rotostreetjournal.com this draft's taken a fucking year and a half to complete. It's been the most miserable pain in my ass draft.
Yeah, I feel for you.
But I imagine it'll be done by the end of this week. So this draft will be up soon. My big board's going up tonight. rotostreetjournal.com/bigboard. If you want to see the top 125 for 2019, already 2 weeks into January, come check that out. It'll be fantastic. CJ's doing a write-up on kind of an overview of the coaching carousel, and I'll be going and digging into deep depth like we did last year with that coaching carousel guide. That's going to be pumped out. So there's no off season. Every day, just keep checking back in. We're going to get that stock watch pumping back, rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch. Tons of great stuff. Obviously, if you liked this podcast, whether it's your first time or many times, Fantasy Fullback Dive, paving that path to fantasy titles, and it starts in January. The lead blocks never end; they begin right now. So subscribe, let us know your thoughts. We love to hear from you guys. And then Roto Street Journal on Facebook and Instagram, both of those platforms really blowing up right now. And me personally, Roto Street Wolf on Twitter, recently followed by an interesting
Antonio Bryant.
Yeah. Well,
part of the Wolfpack.
More, man. Single-handedly won me a title back in 2008, had a heroic playoff run, and we'll have to shout him out. Maybe we can get him onto this podcast at some point. I don't know why or how he found me.
No, when you texted me, you were like, you remember Antonio Bryant? I was like, absolutely, man. He had like some real years. He's a real player, man. He did some big things. He actually won the College Receiver of the Year award. And I want to say he was like only the second sophomore to do it. And the first sophomore to do it was, I forget who it was. It was a really big name. So Antonio Bryant definitely had a big footprint, you know. So and thanks for following us, and we'd love to have you on the show.
Time, man. Awesome. But hit up all those socials and keep following this lead block. We'll be here for you the entire offseason, of course, once 2019 hits, baby.
One more thought before we leave. I was just flipping through the news feed because I was trying to see if there was any other quick stories to plug before we left. And it's not a football story, but Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, obviously getting a divorce, did not have a prenup with his wife.
Oh, wow. How he's such a genius in terms of everything he's built with Amazon. How could he not have had a prenup?
And last I saw, I mean, he's the richest man in the history of the world. Last I saw, he's worth $138 billion.
So he only had 70 billion.
You do the math, that's like $69 billion for her. Good for you, lady.
Does that make her the smartest person that's ever lived?
I'll tell you what that makes her. That makes her like tied for richest person in the world is what it is.
And did it way easier than he ever had to do it.
And I would just like to say, Ms. Bezos, I do have a wife, but that doesn't mean I'm not at least a little bit looking. So,
hey, the wolf is fully single and ready to mingle.
The wolf could break off any engagement that he has right now. If you're interested. And it's not just for your money. We think
billion. I'd have a tough time turning that one down.
$69 billion? Sure. Anyway, so the lesson there is sign a prenup, folks, especially if you're going to found a major internet commerce company. My name is Nat the Truth Jones.
I'm leaving on a crazy high right now. That's crazy. I'm the Wolf, and Miss Bezos, I hope to hear from you momentarily.
Call me at Wolf at Roto Street.
Listener of the Fullback Dive. Yeah, we've been paving her path to titles since 2005. Yeah, she really loves us.
Call us, sweetie.
Awesome. See you guys.
Later.